Hi, and welcome to Check Your Thread, a podcast about sewing more sustainably. My name's Zoe, and I'm obsessed with sewing. I've been blogging about it for over 13 years and am the creator and host of the popular handmade wardrobe challenge, Me Made May. But like many people, I've become increasingly concerned about the climate crisis and the way my lifestyle contributes to it. So in this podcast, I'll be nerding out about making clothes whilst exploring how to minimise the negative impact that it may have. I really hope you'll join me on this journey. Hello, Check Your Threadheads. How is it going? I hope you're doing very well. Are you making anything at the moment? This week, I made my daughter some pyjamas using a free pattern that I mentioned in last week's Sewing to Keep Warm episode. It's the Movie Night Pyjama pattern by Sew a Little Seam. You can access the pattern for free by getting a code when you join their Facebook group. There's also a women's and a men's version. I've used the men's one for my husband before and it's worked really well for him. In fact, I also used the top part of the pattern to make him like a regular long sleeve t-shirt as well. But back to the kids one, they have worked really well in some lovely pale blue cotton Pontel jersey that I got at the Ukraine fundraiser fabric swap that I organised earlier this year. In fact, the only thing that I bought for the project was some white ribbing for the cuffs and neckband because I didn't have anything suitable in my stash. I used up the rest of the Pontel by making her a vest that she can either use for sleeping in or as an underlayer when it's cold. So have you had any sustainability successes lately? Have you tried making any reusable products, or have you discovered any plastic-free alternatives to anything? Have you written to your MP about anything you're passionate about? This week I've been on my period, which means for me wearing some reusable period pads and my period pants. I do still use some regular tampons for the first day and night, however, so I'm not completely free from disposables. I did a bit of an experiment a few periods ago to see if I could handle it completely with reusables, but it was a real mess. But I am down to only using maybe 6 or 7 tampons per period now and wearing pads and pants the rest of the time, which is far better compared to an entire box's worth, which is what I probably used to be using. If you're a period haver and are a bit on the fence about reusables, or you've been meaning to try them but haven't got round to it, or you're not a period haver but someone close to you is and they've been interested in trying them, I really do urge you to give it a try. If you want to jump in pretty deep and make some period pants, check out episode 25, which is all about making them with designer Yelena Buck. But to dip your toe in without too much effort and very little or no outlay, I'd recommend downloading the free cloth menstrual pads pattern by Luna Wolf. I'll put the link in the show notes. From my experience, you can make a really well-functioning and long-lasting pad just using scraps and leftovers. You can use jersey and or brushed cotton, aka flannel, for the top and inner layers, and a scrap of quilting cotton or something similar for the bottom. You need a couple of snaps or Velcro or buttons as a fastening and you're done. I would absolutely recommend just making one and giving it a road test before you cut out and make a whole batch, just in case there's something you'd like to change about the design. It's like my guest Sophie Passmore said on episode 60, once you have some reusables to hand, it really does help you relax. You're not going to have that panic when you get your period by surprise and you're all out of disposables and the shops are shut. You're always going to have something at the ready to see you through for a while. Another person who I know is a convert to reusable period wear is today's guest because she's got a tutorial for making them on her website. But before I start talking about that, I want to say a big thanks to Zita. Zita is a supporter of the podcast via Patreon who upped their donation amount this week. Thank you so much, Zita. If you feel in a position to help the podcast stay afloat, or, dare I say it, grow, you can support the podcast each month via Patreon for any amount that you wish. Please find the link in the show notes, in the episode description, and on the website checkyourthread.com. So back to today's guest. It's Lydia Higginson, the owner of a wonderful business called Made My Wardrobe that I am a massive fan of. I got to speak to Lydia in person in her gorgeous studio in Bristol in the summer when I was there on a very mini break with my best friend. Lydia is really lovely and super relaxed and she made me feel so welcome in her space. Lydia has such an interesting story about how she got where she is today. I know you're going to find it fascinating. She also generously allowed me to grill her on all of the many aspects of her business. So apologies, at a couple of points in the audio, it sounds like people are moving furniture in the room above where we're recording. But them's the breaks sometimes when you do some live recordings on a single track. Anyway, hopefully you won't find it too distracting. As always, there's loads of links to everything we mentioned in the show notes, which can be found at checkyourthread.com. Okay, my friends, enjoy. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lydia.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's so nice to be here.
Thank you so much for giving me some of your day. We're in your amazing studio, which I've stalked on Instagram. And so it's so fun to be here. It's so light-filled and it's full of all your gorgeous, gorgeous stuff and your gorgeous colour palette. I'm so excited. So to start, could you please tell us who you are, where we are, and what fills your days?
Definitely. So my name's Lydia Higginson and we are in the Made My Wardrobe studio. And Made My Wardrobe is a company that, well, it didn't start out as a company. It started out as a very personal project to make my entire wardrobe from scratch. And now we have this incredible studio where we teach workshops and we have patterns and fabrics. And yeah, we're here in central Bristol and it's a lovely place to be.
Yeah. So is this where you develop your patterns as well? This is literally...
Everything happens here, yeah.
Right, so how do you spend your time? Are you here like Monday to Friday?
Yeah, so it depends. If I've been teaching at the weekend, I try and take Monday, Tuesday off.
Nice.
Doesn't always happen. But generally, if I'm not teaching at the weekend, I'm here Monday to Friday. Yeah.
Right.
And it's not normally just me. Today's a quiet day. But there's normally either members of my team or other friends who are seamstresses who pop in and use the space. Or
So it's more of a community almost.
Yeah. And we have open sew sessions where anyone can come and use all of the machines and cut out their big projects and things like that. So.
Yeah, because you've got these beautiful, big, nice heights, kind of cutting tables and lots of natural light. I can imagine if you're... Otherwise, you only kind of sew on your kitchen table. This would be a real treat.
Yeah.
To come in. At least get your project started off, possibly.
Definitely. Yeah, that's what we love it for.
So how did you get into sewing?
Oh, good question. So my mum was actually a curtain maker.
Right.
And she ran the business from our home growing up in the front room. I have no idea how she did it because she had 5 kids and she was running a business from the front room.
Amazing.
Literally using the kitchen table to cut out these huge, elaborate curtains. And so I was always surrounded by the sound of a sewing machine. And the room where she sewed was like below my bedroom. So I have so many memories of being a little girl and just going to sleep with the noise of the machine going. And then... Obviously, she taught me some bits and bobs, but I found it really frustrating trying to learn from her. I really wanted to teach myself in a kind of like annoying, stubborn child way. So I'd always, whenever she was out, I would always like use her machine and sort of cut up bits of fabric that I wasn't meant to.
But any of your siblings getting into sewing also?
No, they never got into it.
Right.
So it just rubbed off on me, the youngest. So yeah, Mum taught me when I was little, and then when I left home, I started a degree in politics and realised very quickly that university wasn't the place for me, dropped out, and then that is when I got really obsessed with sewing.
Right.
And kind of was wanting to do it all day, every day. And kind of just had this little epiphany moment where I thought maybe if I could do this as a job, I'd be really happy.
Oh.
Yeah. And I was only 18, but I just had this real feeling in my heart that I wanted to explore it.
You're so lucky to know what you wanted to do at 18.
Yeah. And then I was so fortunate I managed to get onto an apprenticeship with the costumiers. And then I've been working in the sewing world in some way, shape or form ever since.
Amazing. So at what point, because I know you have quite a sustainability mindset, at what point did kind of sewing and kind of living more sustainably kind of become intertwined?
Oh, interesting. So I started to learn how to make costumes first, and I loved that, and I loved the kind of magic of making a character come to life using clothing. But I began to feel a sort of real disparity between what I was doing at work, where I was making these amazing costumes, and then the clothes that I was wearing at home on my body that just were from a high street and didn't feel like me and didn't feel special and weren't interesting and didn't have any meaning stitched into them. So I think my interest in wanting to make my own clothes just grew out of that, seeing the magic of costume and how much meaning a garment can have.
I want to feel like that.
Yeah, I want to feel like that every day, and I want to be able to wear my art.
So is that when your challenge happened?
Yeah.
So tell me about your challenge.
Yeah.
You know I love a big challenge.
I know you love a challenge. You're the queen of challenge. So yeah, I left London and moved in with my sister. She'd just had a baby. I was at a really supercharged creative time in my life. I don't know what came over me. I was just, all I wanted to do was make things. And I really look back on that time affectionately, because sometimes my creative flow can really disappear now, and for like weeks on end. But back then I was just like, right, let's go. I'm going to make my entire wardrobe from scratch.
Where did that idea come from? Can you remember?
I was actually doing a lot of morning pages, so writing in the morning, and it was a thing that kept coming up.
Oh.
I just kept writing about all the clothes that I would love to make and love to wear, and then if you sort of write about things enough time, you get to a point where you're like, okay,
this is
I need to do
it.
Yeah. Like, read it, it's on the page. So, and it was the time of year sort of was perfect because it was just coming around to January the 1st.
Right.
So I was like, New Year, resolution. But I'm not very disciplined normally with resolutions. Normally I do them for 3 weeks and then by February I've forgotten about them. But this one
They were clearly the wrong one.
I know, right? This one just stuck. I was a woman on a mission.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So what did you do with all your other clothes?
Oh, friends took them mainly.
Oh,
they
really?
were like, yeah, I want this, I want that. And that was lovely. And
So literally by the end of the year, everything was you made.
Yeah. So anything that I hadn't made that was left went to charity shop at the end of the year.
I love how bold that is. That's
I know.
I'll start making a couple of bits. It's like
everything. But I think I needed that kind of all or nothing approach because it made me look at sort of every type of garment, which is what I loved. I loved learning how to make underwear, and I loved learning how to tailor coats, and I remember making my first pair of jeans and just being like on cloud nine, like, I can't believe I just did that.
Yeah, I can relate to that so much because I had a similar kind of super creative time when we first moved to Barcelona. Well, when I moved to Barcelona, then I met Pat, but I was looking after children in the afternoon, so I had all this time in the day until I had to go and collect them from school. And it was like, it's obvious I'm going to sew. And I was the similar. I was just like, nothing was stopping me. And then when I made that decision to do the first Me Made March, I was like, oh, okay, well, I need to figure out pajamas. I need to figure out pants and a coat. And those were like, at that point, my final frontiers, you know. I had loads of tops, I had some trousers, and it kind of pushes you, doesn't it, to be like, okay, let's get to grips with this.
But it's so satisfying once you feel like you have sort of nailed all those different areas.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I ever feel like I know everything. The thing I love most about sewing is that I'm constantly learning. But yeah, once you feel like you've made something that you never imagined you'd be able to make.
Yeah, I really felt myself extracting myself from fast fashion. Like, I am no longer in your clutches.
Yeah,
you know?
And one of my favourite things is now any type of advertising to do with clothing. I'm like, well, that doesn't apply to me. I don't need that.
True.
I can just ignore it.
True.
It's totally irrelevant to my life.
And now sometimes I'd be like, oh, let's look at those sleeves. And I maybe use it as some inspiration. But it's like, this is not for me.
Yeah.
I'm free. It can just wash over me.
Yeah. Which is such a lovely feeling.
So were you always designing your own clothes at that time as well?
Yeah, for me, the designing and making has always gone hand in hand.
Right. So you weren't just getting all the patterns.
No.
You were involved in that process too.
Occasionally I'll use a pattern from another company just because it really helps me think about what's useful when reading a pattern.
Interesting, yeah.
And it's sometimes I do it as sort of it's so relaxing.
I was going to say, you
else.
might be like, just tell me what to do.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, it's so relaxing, just opening up the pattern and everything's been worked out and you're going to tell me what size zip I need. Thank you.
Exactly. Like, oh yeah, I'm so glad you figured out what ratio elastic I need for that.
Yeah, perfect. But my heart definitely lies with starting totally from scratch.
Right.
And yeah.
How did you have time?
It was a really specific time in my life where I'd finished my apprenticeship. I'd moved in with my sister to help her look after the baby, and then I was doing other bits of costume work, freelance. but I had really nice pockets of time between the costume work. And then also I didn't have any other responsibilities, so I was just evenings and weekends.
Yeah.
I was just going for it. Now I look back and I don't understand how I have the time. Like, I do not. I'm so short on time now. I feel so stretched in all directions always, since sort of Made My Wardrobe has turned into such a business.
Well, how did it start into a business then?
When I started Made My Wardrobe, I started a blog as the
that's
good
what
old
you
days,
do.
the good old days, and had loads of people get in touch, especially asking about the underwear, saying,
right.
I really want to learn how to do underwear, would you ever do a workshop? And I was so scared of teaching.
Right.
I was really young, I was like 23, I was 22, 23, and it's like, I don't know enough, I'm not good enough. And then put my first workshop online, and I was like, no one is going to book onto this. And then it sold out, just like that.
So was that an in-person workshop?
Yeah, in person, in the little studio where I was before, Bristol Textile Quarter, which was very much a shared space with other textile artists. And then I just totally fell in love with teaching.
Did you?
Yeah. I really love it. I love the way it makes me refine what I do, because I'm not a perfectionist in any way, shape or form when I'm doing stuff for myself. But when I have to get a pattern ready to print or a pattern ready to teach, it's like, okay, let's make this the best thing it can be.
Right.
And the only reason I would do that is for other people. I would never bother to do that for myself. Like, I'm always amazed at sewers who are really perfectionist about their own things. Yeah, for teaching and for my patterns, it really helps me sort of distill what I do into the best thing it can possibly be. And then I love working out the best way of explaining things for different types of learners, whether you're a visual learner or you need words or you need to see me do it first, and all of those kind of things. I find the ways people learn really fascinating. And the other thing that I can't explain is the magic of like the different dynamics you get in a group of people. So you never know who you're going to get turn up on a workshop, right?
Yeah, it's slightly terrifying, I find.
Yeah. I'm so grateful I have some people that have been on all of my different types of workshops, and it's fab. And it's
so you're looking at your list going, oh
yeah, Susie's coming, great, yeah. And so I love that, but like quite often now it'll be like an all new class, and just the magic of when everyone comes in and they're a bit flustered or they're shy or they're a bit exhausted from trying to find their, get here or whatever it is. Life gets in the way, doesn't it? And then they get here, and just being able to hold space for them for a day or 2 days or 3 days and say like this studio is yours, and it's kind of your space to enjoy and be creative, and nothing's going to distract you or get in your way here. You can just enjoy it and connect with each other. And honestly, we have people like becoming best friends throughout a course and exchanging phone numbers at the end and staying in touch. And I've met so many friends through teaching. So many people I've met on courses have now become really good friends, which is lovely.
Awesome. So the first aspect of Made My Wardrobe was the classes.
Yeah. So I started teaching the classes. I mean, the patterns that I designed and was great, like grading, sort of really dodgily grading, where, I mean, I look back now and I'm really embarrassed, but you have to start somewhere. They worked. We all got the patterns to fit the various people that came, but it was such a learning curve.
So that must have, your background in creating costume for theatre, that must have been really helpful to see different bodies and not just your own body.
Massively.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done so many fittings for all different types of performers, and really thinking about how the garment needs to move, and especially if you're doing costumes for dance or theatre or circus, the garments need to be really well fitted. That was terrifying when I first started doing it, and I can remember my hands shaking as I was trying to pin people, but now I think when you grow in confidence with it and people trust you, that even if it doesn't look perfect straight away, you'll get it to a point where it does.
It's a journey.
It's always a journey. That was definitely really helpful with the workshops, for sure.
So the workshops.
Yeah.
Then what?
Oh, good question.
Because at the moment you've got so many facets of your business.
I know. Maybe I'm like, sometimes I think we do too many things.
But you seem to retain a sense of, from what I can tell, a real sense of kind of freedom and creativity still. You're not just like...
I hope so.
Spinning plates, freaking out. I mean, didn't you just recently go on an artist residency?
Yeah.
So the fact you found time in your busy schedule to do that is props to you. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. I think the business is very heart-led by the team and I. We're like, what are we actually interested in bringing out next month? Not what should we bring out.
Sure.
Like, what do we want to... Because if we want to make something, the end product will always be better than...
if you're passionate about, like, I cannot wait to get this jacket out or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And I think all of us like the variety of, some months we'll just be focused on refining a pattern, and then other months we'll be doing loads of teaching. So we started out it was just me teaching the workshops, and that was the case for quite a while. And I started it in Bristol and then moved it around, did workshops all across the UK and London and Cambridge and all over. Throughout all of that time, I was still doing freelance costume work as well. And then before the pandemic, I was like, right, the time has come. I need to digitalize these patterns. And I was terrified because I'm not a computer person.
Right. You did it yourself.
It was like a really convoluted combination of like me asking for help from other people and then trying to do it myself. And, the first one we did took ages, but now we've absolutely nailed all of the steps and the order that they go in. And because I'm mad, I decided to digitalize four patterns at once. So we brought out the Greta dungarees, the Amaya shirt, the Olivia dress, and the Josie Brown pants. And they were all patterns that I taught and tried on so many different people, and I knew they worked. And and it was just, again, learnt so much in the process. And again, was terrified putting them out and thinking, oh, no one's going to want these. Who sews anyway?
Loads!
Turns out loads of people. And
so you put the patterns out digitally first?
Yeah. Actually, we always did paper and digital from the start, because I just always wanted to offer both.
Yeah.
We always did like a pre-order on the paper just to see if people do want it in paper and get a feel for numbers. It's
a big outlay, isn't it?
Yeah, and we get them all printed just down the road, and then we fold and stick them all ourselves. So we want to know that people want them before we're going to do all of that.
Yeah.
And those, I mean, especially the Greta dungarees and the Josie Brown pants, those two patterns have just really stood the test of time.
Yeah, I've made both.
Oh, lush. And I just love seeing the different variations that people do. And
do you find it fun when you see people hacking them or interpreting them?
It's honestly the best feeling in the world. Like, if I'm having an awful day and someone sends me a photo of something they've made from one of our patterns, my mood just lifts tenfold, because I'm like, okay, I haven't made anything today, but in some way, shape or form we've facilitated someone else in their sewing room or bedroom or wherever they are to make something that's gonna feel good on their body, and
I think that's what it's all about.
So I'm really grateful that this industry exists, that it's a concept that works and people connect with it, and there's such community around it now. Yeah. Because I just think it's the most wonderful industry to work in.
It's definitely, I think, the most supportive corner of the internet, I would say. I mean, I haven't been in every corner of the internet, but I'm assuming.
Thank God.
I don't want to be in most of those corners. But I feel like, I mean, it's so supportive and friendly by and large, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it seems like you've then just kind of kept adding new aspects of your business. So you've still got the workshops, still got the patterns,
and then in the pandemic we started offering the kits, so you could get the fabric and the haberdashery and everything you needed. Brilliant. Because we knew people were having a really tough time kind of sourcing things,
pop down and get a thread and stuff.
Exactly. And they're really great, especially for things like the underwear, where what it's like trying to find all the different notions.
Yeah, like, where am I going to get that?
Yeah. And I love curating the colours and being like, this pink works really well with this green or whatever.
I think you're so good at that.
Oh, that's my favourite bit.
I really love your whole colour palette.
Thank you. Yeah, so then we started doing the kits, and then Mid-pandemic, we did all of our online workshops.
Right, yes.
So my brothers are filmmakers
Handy.
and are very handy. And all of their jobs had been cancelled at the beginning of the pandemic and they were like twiddling their thumbs. So I begged them to help me film the videos. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
They just kept, every time we would cut, they would say, it just seems very fiddly. Like, does anyone actually do this?
Well, we hope.
Yeah. They just couldn't believe, like, seeing the whole process laid out in front of them, it kind of blew their mind.
Right, so the pandemic helped you introduce online workshops and kits.
Yeah. I was actually so grateful for the business during that pandemic because it kept me really busy, and I think I would have gone in, you know, like we all struggled, didn't we? And because I have this focus and this feeling that sewing was bringing people a sense of peace or calm during such a crazy time, I wanted to keep offering things that help them do that from their own home. But it was obviously very scary at the beginning because all of my workshops got cancelled, and I was used to that being my main income, my in-person workshops. And I just got back from an artist residency in California, and we went into lockdown like 2 days later. I think I got one of the last flights out of LAX.
Wow.
Yeah. Flew back for 80 quid. LAX to Heathrow.
Really?
I know.
No one's travelling.
No, it was mad.
Wow.
It was so surreal. And then it was like the next day that Trump closed the border. And
wow.
Yeah.
Dramatic.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. But obviously got back and totally panicked because couldn't run any workshops, all of that.
Well, you pivoted
We pivoted, yeah. And I felt so lucky that I could do that because I know a lot of friends that sort of, it was really tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love how that you have gone into offering the kits, and also you have curated a lovely selection of fabrics that I'm looking at right now that do support your patterns. I think that's such a clever move. And I know, because I really love also on your website where you have set out your kind of core values and your mission. So I know that selecting the most sustainable fabrics and products is really important to you. So what aspects of running your business have kind of proved tricky in terms of taking a more sustainable route, or are they, you know, where have there been frustrations for you?
Great question. Pre-Brexit, it felt very easy to make the most sustainable choices because Europe was massively ahead of the game in terms of mills creating really great sustainable options, so we could get totally recycled denim or organic denim really easily from Italy, like really sustainable lace, which took me ages to find, and then found a great supplier from Germany, and you know, we were importing it and it was really easy. And then as soon as Brexit happened, the prices skyrocketed. Like I literally can't import that denim now because I'd have to charge about 50 quid a meter, and I know no one would buy it for that. And that breaks my heart because it's like the solutions are out there. Yeah. The solutions that we need are out there.
More frustrating in that you were accessing those solutions.
And they're so close and now we cannot access them. So that's felt really frustrating. Yeah. Like there's been times when I've just been banging my head against the wall trying to find another solution. Like, shall I just drive to it? Like,
What do I have to do?
Fill up my boot. I was like, no, that's legal. And also that's a lot of petrol. Yeah, so now we still have some great suppliers and we still do mainly import from Europe. It's just become a lot harder, and I have to be much more selective about what I do buy because I don't want the fabrics to be so expensive that they're not inclusive. And that's a line that I'm constantly reevaluating and trying to weigh up. It makes it so hard
for businesses to start off, doesn't it? Because I mean, you're lucky enough that you've now developed some knowledge, for example, of what your customers are interested in, but it make it so difficult for people starting. And also, I can imagine for yourself as well, frustrated in that, say you've developed a new pattern and you don't have something that is quite right for it, but like, do you go and test that out? You're forced to being a bit more conservative, the small c, aren't you?
Yeah, and that's really frustrating because you want, as a business, you want to feel expansive and experimental and be able to try things creatively. A few weeks ago I was at the Sustainable Fabric Expo. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like a huge...
The Future Fabric section?
Yeah.
I was there.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe on a different day.
Yeah, I didn't see you. But I felt so inspired leaving there, just having seen, as I say, like all the solutions and the answers are out there.
Yeah.
They have been invented.
It made me feel really happy knowing that there was a lot of very clever people working on this stuff.
Yeah, and it just, now it's like we need to be using them and putting them in place.
We need to make it accessible for actual people.
Yeah, and that's the bit that I'm still sort of grappling with, and sometimes I think we find that balance, and other times I think our kits are a bit more expensive than... It's a really tricky one.
Yeah.
But we try and always do like as many different options as possible, so that even if people can't make the underwear with the lace, for example, they can make it with the organic cotton jersey. You know, like we always have as many options as possible at different price points.
Yeah. Which is wonderful. So let's dig in a little bit more into the aspects of your business, because I find it also fascinating.
Definitely.
So let's first of all talk about your beautiful patterns. So how do you decide which styles you're going to work on and develop into a product?
Oh, okay. I wish I knew the answer to that.
Sub-question, where do you look for design inspiration?
Oh, great. Okay. So I've designed probably 100 patterns. Like, they're all sitting in boxes over there.
Really?
And
not just in your head?
No, they exist. They exist. I've made them. I've just designed them for myself, for clothes that I want to wear. The way I choose which ones to prioritise and digitalize and sell is just by which ones I'm wearing the most.
Right, interesting.
And by which ones people come up to me and say, oh, I love that. Where did you get it? So that's my main way of choosing. I wish it was more sort of intelligent or scientific than that.
No, I love it.
It's just a kind of feeling,
Just vibe
noticing what I'm wearing loads and what's feeling good.
Interesting.
And
okay, cool.
what I'm really interested in refining. And then also we think a little bit seasonally, but also patterns are going to be out there for years.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you want a good launch because you want to recoup some of the outlay that went into producing it.
Yeah. And then we try and think about what we haven't done before and what no one's done before. So that was when we brought out the Hilda bag, which is a rucksack and a bike pannier in one.
Yeah.
Which there was no sewing pattern for anything like that out there. And I loved the process of designing that. And it was like almost like engineering something, and we had to have the bits that you clip onto the bike specially made, and finding the supplier for that. And that, I really loved that process.
Wow, that's a whole project.
Yeah, and it's something so practical. And everyone I know who's made one is like, this is a game changer.
Right.
Just having like the weight on the back of your bike rather than on your shoulders when you're cycling means, like, I did a whole food shop before I came to you, and like rode down the hill and got it here, and
I feel like
just
that
put
would
it
be
all in the
safer
Hilda
as
bag.
well, to not have the weight up here.
I agree. It's one of my the designs that brings me most happiness every time I use it,
Awesome.
which is really nice. And then where do I get design inspiration from? Mainly just women that I love. I just love seeing what makes my friends feel good, and what they're wearing and what other seamstresses are making, and
so are you
my
spending
team
time...
I find really inspiring.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's
they
lovely.
have such a great eye. They all have really different style, but I love to see what they're wearing. And then I go and see a lot of theatre and a lot of live performance, and I think I still draw a lot from costume as an inspiration.
Interesting. That's so interesting, because the things you produce, they don't look costumey.
No, yeah, it's that they've become quite utilitarian and sort of...
Yeah,
I know what
like
you
they're
mean.
all super wearable.
Yeah, I think it's more just I love seeing characters come to life, so that was why I go and see a lot of
so a
theatre.
character doesn't have to be bold and flamboyant.
Yeah.
It could be,
I'm trying to think, where else do I get my inspiration from?
How much time do you spend on Instagram?
Oh, too much. It's really... I love it for the sewing community, and that's why I want to be on there. But with all the new algorithms and stuff, the more advertising I get, the more I'm just like, I don't want to be spending loads of time on here.
Yeah, I really feel like, oh, no, wait, no, I am feeding the beast with my attention.
And we don't pay for any advertising on Instagram because I don't want to give Facebook any money. I would rather find other ways. If something's not sticking right, I'm like, we need a little sewing revolution. We need our own app. I think.
I think if anyone could do that, it's probably you. Like, I don't think you're busy enough. I think she could probably just do that maybe on a Wednesday.
And then it could just be like a lovely sewing community. Yeah, share your makes app. Yeah. And then we wouldn't have to look at all the... I'm just constantly getting adverts for like natural deodorant.
Right.
Razors. I'm like, what is wrong with my armpits?
What are you saying to me?
Yeah. And saucepans.
Really?
Yeah, they're my 3 things that I constantly get advertised.
It really annoys me that when with supervision, my kids might search for something like their favourite magazine or something, and then that's all I get. Mm-hmm. All I get is like the Phoenix comic, because they were looking at some tutorials on how to design some characters, and it's just like, yeah, I already get the comic for them.
Yeah.
Stop advertising it to
enough.
me. So it's intelligent enough to know that I've been looking at it elsewhere, but not intelligent enough, I've already got a subscription.
Yeah.
But anyway, awesome. So we've already gone through your fabric. So I'm assuming you choose fabrics that support your patterns. That's why you choose what you choose.
That's massively why we get in what we get in.
Lovely.
And everything is either... So if it's cotton, it's organic cotton. And if it can be, it's a recycled fabric. So all our swimwear fabric is recycled from fishing nets and plastic ocean waste.
Amazing.
Our linen is all recycled from textile waste that would have gone into landfill and shredded down and then rewoven into beautiful linens.
So kind of as sustainable as new fabric could be.
Yeah, exactly. And then occasionally we'll get dead stock, but I wouldn't say that's our prime. No, that's just like if it comes our way, we'll take it and share it around.
Yeah. So you also run sewing workshops in your beautiful studio.
Yeah.
So you're already talking about like what you enjoy the most about that. So you were just saying that your next one that you're going to be hosting is for children or young people.
Yes.
That's so lovely. Have you done younger people's workshops before?
So we've done 16 to 25-year-olds before, but the one that's starting tomorrow is our summer sewing camp, and it's for 11 to 14-year-olds. So this is the youngest group we have taught. I cannot wait to see how it goes.
Yeah. Are they generally children of people that already sew, do you know? Or how did they hear about your class?
So we will see tomorrow.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
We put it out there.
We put it out there. They booked on. It was actually really popular. We've even got a waiting list for other people that wanted to come, but I think 8 was the max we could do.
Yeah.
It's like 8 youngsters feels like a good number.
Yeah. I mean, as a parent looking for things for my kids to do over the summer, if it's not a sport thing, there's not
it's kind
a
of
lot.
tricky.
And occasionally there's the odd art workshop, but there's not that many. If your kids aren't particularly sporty or they don't, you don't want it to be wall-to-wall sport all summer long, it's nice that there's these options. It's really cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I feel like I want to check back in with you on Thursday and I'll let you know how it's gone.
I would love to know. So which have been the most popular classes that you offer?
Ooh, I mean, nothing's not been popular.
Well, that's good.
Which is really nice. The retreats have just been so brilliant.
So they go over a weekend?
They're 3 days.
Right, lovely.
Yeah, and I think what really appeals to people about that is they can properly come and get really stuck in. Over 3 days you can make a good amount of stuff, and they can choose any of our 16 patterns.
Wow.
Any of our fabrics, and we're really on hand to help with any kind of customization or fitting advice, which it feels like people go away at the end with a lot. Yeah. You know, I'm like, oh yeah, we've really done a good offering there.
I've made a capsule wardrobe.
Yeah,
nice.
It's really nice to see.
That must be really satisfying for everyone.
Yeah, and I love seeing all the different directions that people take the patterns in as well. And we normally run them about 3 times a year, so spring one, an autumn one, and a winter one.
I can imagine that they are quite they take a lot of energy for you as well.
Yeah,
you don't want to do them every month.
I know. I wish I could, but with teaching, I give a lot, and I don't ever want to feel jaded by it.
Sure.
So I would rather teach them less regularly and do them really well.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, massively.
And then the one that I really loved this spring was we did a banners and wall hangings one.
Nice.
Because that's something that I've been making myself and really love the process of. And everyone got so creative with
Really?
their banners and went off in really different directions. It almost looked like they hadn't all been on the same workshop.
Oh, interesting.
Do you know what I mean? Like, so I taught them a handful of different techniques for like applique and patchwork and quilting and stuff. And then just was like, now you do you.
So did they bring their own fabrics?
No, I supplied the fabrics, but because it was kind of patchwork and quilting and stuff, I had so many different scraps. Like,
yeah.
The amount of scraps that we have is insane.
I don't throw scraps.
I don't throw anything away, so we have a lot to use up, basically.
So like when the bins get too big, like we should run another one of those quilting workshops.
Yeah, exactly, that's it. We've actually got another one booked in October. There's a couple of spaces left if anyone wants to come, because it's really fun and you get to make an amazing bit of artwork to go on your wall.
That's quite unusual. I don't think there's probably many sewing schools or workshop spaces doing something similar.
Yeah.
That's almost bridging a gap between, maybe doing like some sort of fine art or life drawing or something, or sewing. It's like something bridging the gap there.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I love about it. I think that it meets both those worlds.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I have a real soft spot for the beginners workshops.
Do
because
you?
I love meeting people that have never sewn anything before and they go away at the end of the day with a garment that they've made and they cannot believe it.
Yeah.
Like the wow factor on those workshops is so much fun.
Yeah, completely. So tell us about your scholarship program.
Yes, brilliant. So on all of our workshops, we have one full scholarship and one half scholarship available.
This is an amazing idea. So
yeah.
What gave you that idea?
Again, it just came back to that thing of not wanting it to feel like an exclusive club, wanting it to be as inclusive as possible, and also wanting to feel like there were options for people both from the local community and also if people wanted to come from overseas, because we have people who come from all over to our workshops, but obviously it's a big commitment travel wise, so if they can do a half scholarship, that helps, kind of thing. And the criteria is, I mean, you can find it all on the website. It's pretty broad because I wanted people to be able to engage with it in the way that they wanted, and the application process is relatively short and simple. What I will say is some people literally do 2-word answers on the application process, and it's tricky for me to kind of connect with that.
Yeah,
so
how engaged with this are
you?
Yeah,
like if you want it, like show me a little bit.
Yeah, give me a sentence.
Yeah, but you don't have to write a whole thesis.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
And it's just been lovely.
Has it been well subscribed? Like people have been engaging with it?
Definitely. We don't make any mention of it on the workshop, so we don't sort of, you feel like a... Yeah, so I'm really glad we started it. It'd be great if we could get funding from some sort of philanthropist.
Yeah.
Because there's also loads of other work like that we really want to do work with so in the building where we are, there's Ukrainian women having language lessons. They've come over from Ukraine since the war started. And we'd love to do workshops with them and more workshops with young people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's just balancing all the books.
Of course. Well, yeah.
So, yeah, if we can find
Especially when a lot of your events are going on.
Yeah, exactly. So if we can find more ways of funding those kinds of activities, that would be incredible.
Amazing. Well, that's an incredible place to start.
Yeah.
So also you've been super clever because you offer artist residencies, don't you, to help utilise your space at other times when you're not running workshops.
Exactly.
So what gave you the idea to do that? Like, you just seem like an endless wealth of ideas.
So I have always really loved sharing a creative space. I don't need to be in here on my own at all to focus. My favourite thing is to be in a workspace with other people working on their own creative projects as well. In the past, I've always had that in my past studios, and then we moved here and we didn't have it for about 6 months because it was just us and we were super busy and we needed all the space. And I realised I really missed it.
Yeah.
And there's something, you get a really deep connection with people when you are both working creatively next to each other. I think some of my real deepest friendships are with other artists who I've either had studios next to or worked on a project together. And
it doesn't have to be even in the same discipline, does it?
Yeah, and so I did a shout out about it, and we had a handful of really lovely applications, and then people got busy or it's not taken off as much as I hoped, which is a shame, but I really hope that maybe in the autumn or winter it does more, because the studio is so beautiful. We've got central heating, we've got loads of lights.
Very light filled, yeah.
Yeah, we've got all the machines set up ready to go. We've got the tables. So it'd be lovely. It's for professional artists. So that's the only, and that can mean whatever it means to you. So it's not so much for, I don't really like the word hobbyists, but do you know what I mean? It's more for people who have an artistic practice and that is their main job.
Yeah, awesome. So we were discussing scraps a moment ago. So I was guessing through all your sample making and pattern development and your workshops, you must accrue a fair bit of scraps. So you're saying you don't throw anything away?
Unless it's like tiny sort of threads, I don't throw it away.
Yeah. So do you have a system? Like, how does it work?
We do. So we have a main fabric bin over there, which during the workshops, anyone can throw anything into. And then either me or Anna go through it when it gets full. And then we have different bins, like stretch fabric, like big pieces, small pieces, and we try and colour code them a bit as well. Oh, it's a constant battle, I'm not gonna lie, but it's worth doing because it makes much easier to use if they are sorted.
Yeah. Round 1, bin.
Yeah.
Round 2,
different
sorting
bins.
Sorting into type.
Yeah.
And then from that,
and then
colour.
Yeah, and then being used. So hopefully, for example, tomorrow when I'm teaching the 11 to 14-year-olds, I'm going to really encourage, they're making Zara jumpers, so I'm going to really encourage them to do the cuffs and the collar out of scrap pieces because they're smaller pieces.
And testing stitches and stuff like that.
All of that stuff. It's really good for underwear. You can often get underwear out of scraps, which is great. Swimwear, you can often get swimwear out of scraps. And then, the more we do a lot of different sort of types of patchwork and quilting and making cushion covers.
Yeah.
And,
Awesome. Thank you for all those tips. Okay, so 2 more questions because I've taken loads of your time.
Love it.
What tips would you give to sewers who want to be more sustainable in their approach and in making their wardrobes? Keep all your scraps.
Keep all your scraps. My tip would be use Coats Epic thread.
Oh.
Because it's really strong and your garment is way less likely to come apart if you use this thread. What is it made from? I think it is a mix of poly and cotton, but I think it's worth it. That's just one that I picked up from my costume days because obviously costumes have to be really strong. They go through
a lot, yeah.
Yeah. It's a really tricky one because so much of what I teach is about not being afraid of mistakes and it's
a real balance.
It's a real balance because ultimately mistakes do lead to wastage. But I believe even if you make something and you don't like it, you can always turn it into something else.
Yeah.
So I think if you make something and it doesn't work out and that feels wasteful, don't worry because you just try and rehash it into something else and you can always get to it. The amount of times I've turned something into one thing and then another thing and then another thing, I think really don't be afraid of doing that. And then I think a massive thing is learning, and this takes time, but learning what fabrics work for what patterns.
Yeah.
Because if you have the right fabric for the right pattern, you're way more likely to get a garment that works and that you love to wear. Whereas if you're using the wrong fabric and the wrong pattern, you're kind of destined for failure from the start.
Yeah, you're not going to want to wear it ultimately, are you?
And that's, I think, where the kits come in really handy.
Yes.
And we give people exactly the right amount depending on their size of elastic and fabric and lace and whatever else they need. So that's quite a good way of just having enough of what you need.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But I also get a bit where I don't like to preach, it's that hard thing where I want to live it and encourage people to also be as sustainable as they can, but everyone's just doing the best they can, aren't they?
But also you want to have fun and make stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so finally, can you name any makers or businesses or anyone or anything else that inspires you?
Oh, so many. I'm going to start with Camille, and her Instagram is Camille from Thimble.
Right.
And she's a French seamstress who lives in rural Wales, and she teaches gorgeous workshops. And she's actually someone who I met through Instagram and has now become a gorgeous friend. And I go and visit her in Wales whenever I can. So definitely check out her, and she has great online stuff as well. Hetty, the modern sewer.
Right.
She's fab. I love her kind of clean lines, and she's a really great tailor and pattern cutter, and she has her own patterns and online workshops. a special shout out to Marcy.
Yes, Marcy Harriel.
Marcy
I don't know if
Harriel.
I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah, okay. Special shout out to Marcy Harriel, who is, I think she was New York based, but I don't know if she's still in New York. I think maybe she moved out. But
She's Una Baluna.
Yeah, Una Baluna. Oh my gosh, I remember following her from the very beginning of her blog and just being blown away by her make. She really caught, like, the clothes she makes really caught my imagination, and her whole personality and everything. And I've never met her, but I just think she's totally brilliant and love her energy. To be honest, like, again, a lot of my team, just seeing what they're making really inspires me, and we often bounce ideas off each other and swap fabrics and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's so nice to be surrounded by creative people.
Yeah, I feel really lucky. And then I get really inspired by shoemakers and jewellery makers and kind of, you know, like not the sewing world, but just outside the sewing world. Like my friends Otwin, who hand make shoes here in Bristol. I just think they're so clever. I'm blown away by what they do.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for letting me into your beautiful, beautiful space. It's been a real joy to meet you.
Oh, it's been such a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this episode and are left feeling inspired. For more info about the podcast, including show notes for this and every episode, head to checkyourthread.com. I'd love to hear from you, so if you have any comments, questions or ideas for future episodes, please get in touch by emailing zoe@checkyourthread.com or find me on Instagram @checkyourthread. Massive thanks to Patrick Potter for production support, to Sylvia Seller for the awesome logo design, and to Simon at Palm Skin Productions for the music. This ad-free podcast would not be possible without listener support, so if you feel you are able, please consider signing up to the Check Your Thread Patreon. For the equivalent of buying me a coffee each month, you'll be making it possible to continue producing regular episodes. Links can be found in the show notes and on the website checkyourthread.com. I hope you'll listen again next week. Until then, take care. Bye!